All right, so today we're going to be looking at presidential progressivism. So, this is how the presidents during the progressive era really made a point, again, to solve the issues in society. The three presidents that we're going to be looking at are going to be Teddy Roosevelt, or Theodore Roosevelt, which is technically his real name, but most people call him Teddy Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, as well as Woodrow Wilson. Teddy Roosevelt's really going to be one of the more famous presidents from the progressive era. If any of you have seen Night at the Museum, with Ben Stiller, Robin Williams plays Teddy Roosevelt. So if you've seen that movie before, you kind of have an idea as to who Teddy Roosevelt is. So Teddy Roosevelt was really an accidental president. He was the vice president for William McKinley, and then William McKinley ends up getting assassinated. At this time, he's the third president to be assassinated, the fourth in United States history. So again, even though the 25th Amendment wasn't in place quite yet, that said that the vice president would become president if something happens, this is just what people did, right? It's the entire reason a vice president really exists in the first place. So once William McKinley is assassinated, Teddy Roosevelt is officially sworn in as president. And when he became president, he had what was called the Square Deal. And these are going to be, again, the issues that he sees in society and what it is that he wants to solve. So the first that we're going to be looking at is the control of corporations. So Teddy Roosevelt really saw monopolies in society as a bad thing. And again, a monopoly is when a company has a control over the market. So again, I know I've mentioned it before and I kind of beat it with the dead horse, but I just think it really works. When we go back to that toilet paper example, if Angel Soft was the only toilet paper company to exist, they could charge $20 for a single roll of toilet paper because, again, they're the only company around, so they can charge whatever they want. Teddy Roosevelt saw that as a bad thing. He saw the fact that Angel Soft would be charging $20 for a single roll of toilet paper is not good for the consumer. And so we would need to break that monopoly up. So other companies like Charmin Ultra, like Costco's brand, like Target's brand would exist because competition creates lower prices for consumers. So Roosevelt was not a fan of monopolies, especially ones that screwed over consumers at all. He's also going to, again, make sure to protect consumers, especially when it comes to food and drugs. So it was under his presidency that the Meat Inspection Act as well as the Pure Food and Drug Act are created. So if you remember from the social reforms, we talked about The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. And even though the point of The Jungle was to talk about the fact that immigrant workers were being treated poorly, once people read the book, they didn't care about the workers at all. They were horrified by their food. The fact that bad meat was intentionally being sold, you had rats running around the meat lockers, you had leaky pipes that were going onto the meat that were then being sold to consumers. People were really grossed out by it. And so under Roosevelt's presidency, that Meat Inspection Act is going to be created. So again, when you go to the meat department and you see a little USDA sticker on your meat, that means that it's been inspected and it's good enough to sell. And of course, the Pure Food and Drug Act is going to lead to the FDA, which regulates food and drug throughout the United States to make sure it's safe for people to consume. And then something else that's really cool about Roosevelt is that he was very much a conservationist and really ahead of his time when it comes to the environment. He saw the importance of the environment and sort of knew that you have to make sure that land is protected, that water is clean, that air is clean, because the Earth's not going to be around forever. And if you don't start taking care of these things, it's not going to last. You can almost think of it as ourselves as people. If I eat McDonald's every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'm not going to make it till I'm 80, right? More likely, I'm probably going to die by the time I hit 50 because I'm going to have clogged arteries. I'm probably going to be overweight because I don't take care of myself. So you can't expect things to last if you don't take care of them. And that's Roosevelt's perspective with the environment. You can't expect to have clean water and clean air and land if you don't take care of those things. And so he's really going to make a point to really conserve the environment and make sure that land gets set aside to eventually create national parks. So I talked about the fact that Roosevelt was not a fan of monopolies, specifically ones that screwed over consumers. And he gets the nickname of the trust buster. So a trust is just another name for a monopoly. So again, a trust, just like a monopoly, is when a company has a singular control over the market. And he becomes known as the trust buster because, again, he's going to make a point to break up companies that he felt was good for he's going to make a point to break up companies that he felt was bad for the consumer. However, there were also some good monopolies that Roosevelt believed in. So I'm going to give you guys this example. Most of you have a cell phone. And if I were to go around and ask what cell phone provider you have, many of you would give me different options. Some of you might have Verizon, some of you might have T-Mobile, some of you might have AT&T, some of you might have Sprint. And again, if I were to ask you the price of those phones, everybody would have something different. So for some of you, you might be on a family plan and it's $260 a month under T-Mobile for everybody to have a phone with texting and data and all that stuff. Maybe if you have Verizon, it's like $150. If you have Sprint, maybe it's $200. If you have AT&T, maybe it's $220. But all of us have different cell phone providers and all of us have different prices. What if I were to tell you that Verizon was going to be the only cell phone company to exist? There would be no more Sprint, no more AT&T, no more T-Mobile, no other sort of third-party cell phone company you could think of, just Verizon. And in exchange for Verizon being the only cell phone company, they're going to charge each person $15 for their phone with unlimited texting, unlimited data, all the good stuff that you can think of. If I were to ask you, would you take that deal? I think most of you would say yes, that's a great deal. Even if you don't have Verizon, you'd be like, $15 for unlimited texting and data, I'm going to take it. Roosevelt would allow a company like that to stay in business because he would say that's a good trust. So even though Verizon was technically the only cell phone market on the company in this example, because they're charging consumers good prices, Roosevelt didn't feel the need to get rid of that trust or that monopoly. Very comparable to the Carnegie and U.S. Steel. So even though Ida Tarbell is going to write that book in which the steel company is going to be broken up, Roosevelt felt that Carnegie should be able to stay in business and have a monopoly on the steel market because he continued to charge people good prices. Now, going back to that cell phone example, let's say Verizon was charging us all $15 a month for a phone for unlimited texting and data. And then they decided tomorrow, you know what, since we have a monopoly on the market, we're going to up the price. And they changed to say $400 a month for a phone and texting and data. All of a sudden, that would be a bad monopoly, and Roosevelt would feel the need to get rid of it. Very similar to Northern Securities Company, which is basically what JP Morgan was, is that he felt that they were being unfair to consumers, so therefore they had to go. But he does get that nickname of the Trust Buster because, again, he didn't like monopolies that screwed over consumers. However, if the monopoly or the trust was good to the consumer, then he felt the need to go ahead and keep it around. As I mentioned, Teddy Roosevelt was definitely ahead of his time when it came to, the environment. Even as a kid, he was very much an outdoor enthusiast, and he really had a love for nature. He was a very smart guy, grew up in a very wealthy family, but, he was someone who hunted. And even though he hunted, again, he understood the importance of preserving the land and preserving nature. And because of the Natural History Museum, especially with the Smithsonian, is going to be created pretty much as a result of him, because he would take sort of animals and stuff that he would find, throughout the world or through friends, and would donate it to the museum, because again, he understood how important the environment was and really just protecting it. He was really good friends with John Muir, who's really going to kind of help guide him in his naturalist ideas. And under Roosevelt's presidency, the Newlands Act is going to be created, and it began irrigation projects in the West to bring life to the arid desert. And he's also going to set aside 125 million acres of forest land that will later become national parks like Yellowstone and Yosemite. There's a couple of other interesting facts about Teddy Roosevelt. He was definitely a fighter. Right? He was a very smart guy. He actually ended up dropping out of Harvard. He was initially going for law school, but he started to develop an interest in politics and just decided Harvard was no longer for me, and he dropped out. But he was very much sort of like a fighter, rough and tough type of dude. In 1898, he's going to volunteer in the Spanish-American War, and his group's going to be known as the Rough Riders because, again, they were just kind of like a force to be reckoned with. And when he's president in the White House, he's actually going to set up like a boxing ring in the White House, and he would box with other people. While he was in the White House, and because he continued boxing, he actually ended up losing sight and I believe his left eye. And because of that, he stopped boxing and just went to jiu-jitsu because it was technically a little bit safer. But he was definitely like a very cool guy. He's fifth cousins with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who would later become president during the 1930s. And then if you remember when we went over the first part of Reconstruction notes, he was actually watching the procession of Abraham Lincoln's funeral. So he was watching it and then would eventually become president himself. He was the first president to get a Nobel Peace Prize, and he received that in 1906. In 1904, Russia and Japan were in the middle of a war over some territory, and what Roosevelt's going to do is negotiate a peace deal once he negotiates that, he ends up getting a Nobel Prize. It's also because of Teddy Roosevelt that teddy bears are known as teddy bears. Roosevelt was visiting, I believe it was Missouri, to basically kind of, meet with some people and whatnot. And when he was there, because he was an avid hunter, they had basically captured this old bear for him to hunt. And Roosevelt refused. He was like, that's not hunting. Like, if you capture a bear for me to kill, I didn't put in the work to actually kill the bear. So there's really no point in me participating in this hunting activity because you capturing this bear totally takes out the whole sport of it. And so because of that, the next day there was a political cartoon about him, refusing to kill this bear. And then this guy, started selling stuffed teddy bears or stuffed bears. He asked to call them teddy bears, and with Roosevelt's permission, he got it. And so it's because of Teddy Roosevelt and that incident that teddy bears are what they are today. And they are called teddy bears. Roosevelt had actually wanted to run for a third term. So he becomes president in 1901 when McKinley's assassinated, finishes out that term, runs in 1904, is reelected, and serves his own term. He wanted to run again, but chose not to. And the reason being was because nobody before then had served more than 2 terms. Even though the 22nd Amendment limits the president to 2 terms, that didn't exist until the 1950s. And the reason no one had served more than 2 terms up until Roosevelt, FDR I should say, was because that's what George Washington did. When George Washington was president, he had served 2 4-year terms and then decided that he was no longer going to be president. And the reason being, he was like, if I serve any more terms, I'm basically going to be similar to a king, where it's just one guy in power for a really long time. And Washington was like, we didn't fight the Revolutionary War to continue to have a king, and so he bounced. And after that, everyone just continued to serve 2 terms because that's what Washington had done. And Roosevelt decided that he would go ahead and do the same thing. Even though he wanted to continue to be president, he's like, look, no one else has served more than 2 terms, so I'm going to bounce, and I'm going to trust that William Howard Taft, who's been my president from 1904 to 1908, will continue on with my good work. And William Howard Taft, he's going to run as the Republican nominee for president in 1908, and he's going to win. But Roosevelt wasn't really happy with the job that William Howard Taft was doing. Under Taft, he actually busted up more trust than FDR, and he didn't care if it was a good trust or a good monopoly. He got rid of it anyway. So going back to that Verizon example, if Verizon was charging $15 per phone for everybody, Taft basically didn't care. He was like, even if they're charging the consumers a good price, the fact that they have a monopoly on the market means that they could be dangerous. So therefore, they have got to go. And this really pissed off Roosevelt because he felt like he had done a lot of good work to protect consumers and that Taft was essentially ruining it. Taft is also going to run for president yet again in 1912. And Teddy Roosevelt basically decides he's going to come out of retirement and run against Taft himself. A couple of fun facts about William Howard Taft. He is the only president to serve in all 3 branches of government. So he served in the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. He's going to be appointed to the Supreme Court in the 1920s. The only other president who may have come close to serving or matching that feat would have been Barack Obama. So Barack Obama was a senator and then a president, and there were rumors in 2016 that when he endorsed Hillary Clinton for president, that if Clinton won, she was going to appoint Obama to the Supreme Court, but obviously she didn't win, and that didn't happen. It's also because of William Howard Taft that the 7th inning stretch exists during baseball games. So if any of you have ever been to a baseball game, and during the 7th inning stretch, you stand up and you sing the song and, bring me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. That exists because of Taft. But what Taft really gets remembered for is this rumor that he ended up getting stuck in the bathtub at the White House. Taft was a big guy. He was 350 pounds. So you can do the math and figure out how much he weighs. And the rumor was he was taking a bath, tried to get out, and ended up getting stuck in the bathtub. There are some historians who say that that rumor cannot be proven to be true. However, I don't think a rumor like that just comes, flying out of thin air. But what people remember most about Taft was the 350-pound president who ended up getting stuck in the bathtub in the White House. So because Taft is going to be a member of the Republican Party, Taft serves from 1908 to 1912, and then he decides in 1912 that he's going to run for president yet again. Again, Roosevelt was not really happy about the fact that, that Taft, he felt sort of destroyed his legacy a little bit. And so Roosevelt decides that he's going to go ahead and run against Taft for the presidency. But he doesn't end up joining the Republican Party. He ends up joining his own party known as the Progressive Party, which was kind of named after the Progressives. And it ends up getting the nickname of the Bull Moose Party because that was one of Teddy Roosevelt's nicknames as well, as that he was a bull moose. Under the Progressive Party, they wanted a regulation of industry, labor protection, conservation, as well as the expansion of democracy, aka making sure that women had the right to vote. The Bull Moose Party is really, or the Progressive Party is really going to come into existence in 1912, and we know that the 19th Amendment doesn't come into play until 1920. And the reason that Roosevelt is going to get the nickname the Bull Moose is because while Roosevelt was getting a speech, somebody actually shot him in the chest. And when he got shot, they were like, oh my God, I got to go to this hospital. And Roosevelt stays on stage and says it's going to take more than one bullet to kill a bull moose. Stays on stage for another hour to give his speech, and then goes to the hospital afterwards. So the joke that people sort of make is like Teddy Roosevelt got shot and continued to give his speech for another hour, and 50 Cent got shot 9 times, and he ended up leaving the stage and go to the hospital. Obviously, 9 times is different than 1, but Roosevelt was really a badass. Like, he was just like a very cool, rough and tough type of guy. But because he ends up getting shot in the chest, it's because of that that eventually he gets the nickname the Bull Moose, and the Progressive Party becomes known as the Bull Moose Party. So in 1912, you're basically going to be having 3 people that are running for president. You're going to have Woodrow Wilson, who is the Democrat. That's the donkey in the center. You're going to have William Howard Taft, who is the Republican, and he is the elephant. And then you're going to have Teddy Roosevelt, who is known as the Bull Moose. I'm sorry, that's in the middle. I apologize. I mixed those up. So the reason that the Democrats have the image of the donkey as their political party was because of Andrew Jackson. So Andrew Jackson was president from 1928 until 1936, and he was a Democrat. Someone once called him a jackass, and so as a term of endearment, he went ahead and made the donkey the symbol of the Democratic Party, and that's what it's been ever since. The Republicans are represented by the elephants because of something in the 1870s. It's not as good of a story, but in the 1870s, there was this political cartoon that somebody made, and they labeled the elephants the GOP, which is the nickname for the Republican Party, the Grand Old Party, and then since then, the elephants have been the symbol for the Republican Party. So you have the elephant here, who's the Republicans, the moose, which represents the Bull Moose Party, and you have Woodrow Wilson over here on the donkey. The problem is that because Roosevelt and Taft basically came from the same Republican Party, the votes ended up getting split. And because of that, Woodrow Wilson's going to win automatically. Think of it this way. If you have 5 girls running for prom queen, and 4 of those girls come from the cheer team, and 1 of those girls comes from the water polo team, the girl who's on water polo is probably going to win. Why? Because any girl that's on water polo is going to vote for the water polo girl. Since you have 4 cheerleaders who are running for president, or prom queen, I should say, it's going to split the vote. People aren't going to be sure which cheer girl to vote for. And that's essentially what happened in this election. People who were loyal to the Republican Party weren't sure if they should vote for Roosevelt or if they should vote for Taft. And so the vote ended up getting split, and it's going to give Woodrow Wilson the presidency pretty easily. It's why during presidential races, you really only have the Democrats and Republicans, because third parties basically tend to just sort of throw a wrench into whatever party they come from. So in 1892, when George H.W. Bush was running for president as a Republican, Ross Perot, who had also been a member of the Republican Party, he ended up running as an independent, and because of that, it cost George H.W. Bush re-election, and Bill Clinton, the Democrat's going to be nominated as a result. And George H.W. Bush hates Ross Perot. Like, he was asked about him in an interview and just goes, "We don't talk about that." So because of, Roosevelt running as the Bull Moose Party, the Democrats and Woodrow Wilson are going to win pretty handedly. Under Woodrow Wilson's presidency, the 17th Amendment is going to be ratified. Again, this gives people the ability to directly elect their senators, and every state gets 2 senators. The Federal Reserve Act is also going to be created. This creates the national banking system that we still have today. You're also going to have the Clayton Antitrust Act that gets passed. And the point, of course, of the Clayton Antitrust Act was, again, to make sure that monopolies did not exist. And if they did exist, they needed to be broken up. The 18th Amendment is also going to be ratified. This is going to ban alcohol in American society. We'll talk about that tomorrow. And again, you're probably going, but wait, people can drink alcohol today. Yes, the 18th Amendment does not last very long. And then, of course, the 19th Amendment, if you watched Iron Jawed Angels, you really saw women, working with Woodrow Wilson to try to get that amendment passed. But the 19th Amendment officially gives all women the right to vote in America.